Hi, it's Monday, January the 6th, and I continue to read and wonder my way through the Book of Deuteronomy. And today we're finishing up a chapter. Today it's Deuteronomy chapter 19, verses 15 to 21. To get here, well, we just heard about cities of refuge and how they needed to be six of them ultimately throughout the Promised Land, three on each side of the river, easily accessible, and they were part of making sure that there was justice. And now we're going to hear more, I think, about justice. So this is Moses giving basically three sermons. This is the middle one, the big one, to the people before they go into the Promised Land, about how they're going to live well in the Promised Land in accordance to God's will. Right? So here it is, Deuteronomy 19, 15 to 21. A single witness shall not suffice to convict a person of any crime or wrongdoing in connection with any offense that may be committed. Only on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses shall a charge be sustained. If a malicious witness comes forward to accuse someone of wrongdoing, then both parties to the dispute shall appear before the Lord, before the priests and the judges who are in office in those days, and the judges shall make a thorough inquiry. If the witness is a false witness, having testified falsely against another, then you shall do to the false witness just as the false witness had meant to do to the other. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. The rest shall hear and be afraid, and a crime such as this shall never again be committed among you. Show no pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. There we go. And when read in translated English, there is a real vengeful sense to these words, I think. And I'm not going to pretend that I can take you back to the ancient Hebrew or even to the Septuagint Greek. There was a time I probably could have. That time is not now. However, I am familiar with languages, with the biblical languages, particularly Greek. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to just mention it again. The ancient Hebrew that in which this was originally recorded had a working vocabulary of about 7,900 words. Okay, a little less than 8,000. The Greek that was used for this, so this would be translated into the Greek. That's the Septuagint. We had that, and our New Testament's written in Greek. It was the common language actually in Rome, in the Roman Empire. That Greek had a working vocabulary of about 9,700 words, so a little under 10,000. You and I, speaking English right now, if English is your first language, as it is mine, we have a working vocabulary that suggests at about 170,000 words, with access to over 1 million words. Meaning you and I could look it up or probably figure out the meaning, even if you don't use it regularly. So we have precision with words. And so we tend to rely a little less on context than those who are writing in Hebrew a couple thousand years ago, 2,500, 2,600, 2,700 years ago. Their context matters a lot. I recently heard somebody, talk about how context matters by giving an example of a strike. No, that's your first strike. If we're bowling and I say that's your first strike, that's encouraging. Like, look at you, that's your first strike. This is going to be a great game. And obviously, because we're in a bowling alley, I'm talking about you throwing a ball down the alley or bowling a ball down the alley. That's your first strike. If we're playing baseball, we're on a diamond, and I'm the umpire, what I've just told you is you got 2 more chances and you're out. Right? So now it changes. I said strike, but we're in a baseball diamond, so we know that we're not talking about bowling. If we are in combat, and I said be sure that first strike counts, I'm probably talking about dropping some kind of bomb or making some kind of shot, something violent like that. If you are my friend and you've said something to offend me, I say, that's your first strike. I'm warning you that our friendship is at risk if you keep doing this, whatever you're doing, right? So those are 4 slightly different meanings because the context changes. Same word, context changes things. So I think context is really, really important in this. So we sometimes will take these words and we will treat them as if they're precise and carry them into our context and say, there you go, you can see quite clearly that God said, show no pity. I mean, Moses is the one speaking the words, apparently, but these are God's instructions through Moses. And I would suggest to you that somebody else has apprehended Moses' voice at a different time. But anyway, regardless, the author is saying, show no pity, life for a life. Somebody killed, you kill the son of a gun, right? That's what I hear in this. When I read it in English, and I just think the way that I'm thinking when I'm watching Netflix, right? And I think that when we're talking about justice and how we're going to live out justice, if we don't imagine a culture that's bent on vengeance, but in fact looking for some sense of mercy, some sense of kindness, of love even. And I know that when we read Hebrew scripture, sometimes we find it harder to see that love that we find in the Gospels. But I believe very strongly it is there. It's how we choose to read it. And people will say, well, but the God of Jesus is so much nicer than the God of the Old Testament. But if you read those Hebrew scriptures, what some of us might call the Old Testament, if you read it assuming that, yeah, you're right, there's a angry, vengeful God there. But if you read looking for the mercy, I believe there's also a merciful, loving, kind God in there. So here we're being told that the best way to live in the promised land is to make sure that there is a system of justice. We heard about some of that just at the last reading, and now we're going on saying, all right, so if there's been some kind of crime, a single witness is not enough. It can't be a he said, she said. He said, he said. It can't be that kind of thing where I accuse you of something, you say I didn't do it, and I say yes you did, and you say I didn't do it, and then somebody judges and goes, oh, well, there you go, I choose Bob. It's not a situation where I accuse you of something, you defend yourself, and then we brew a pot of tea, pour out the leaves, and read the leaves, and the leaves tell us, no, I choose Bob. It isn't like that. No. A witness will be called, but a single witness is not enough. So there has to be somebody else. There has to be corroboration. Now, I would also tell you, because I know this, you don't want me to go through how I know this, but anyway, a witness, and I mentioned this, I think, a couple of weeks ago in a similar kind of passage, a witness can also be blatant evidence. So I break into your house and I tear my lovely hoodie, and a piece of my hoodie is stuck on your door, and there's a tear in my sleeve that matches the piece that's stuck on the door, and I've been accused of breaking into your house. Well, that cloth that came out of my hoodie that stuck at your door, that would be a witness to the crime I'd committed. So that's one piece of evidence, right? And then you was in your house, said, yeah, Norm burst through my door and he threatened me and then he stole something and ran away. There's a second piece of evidence. Even better is the third one, which is your neighbor saw me running out holding whatever it is I was accused of stealing. Okay, now we've got three pieces of evidence. But what this is saying is it cannot simply be he said, she said. He said, he said. Witness against witness. And that's fine. We don't think much about that, except that if indeed we take that seriously, what we're being told is it doesn't matter whether you're popular or unpopular. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. It shouldn't matter whether you have been guilty of a crime in the past, because all we're talking about is witness, witness, witness. What was seen, not, his character is such, oh no, he's, as they say in English shows, he's got form. He's got a record this long. Of course he had, no. What was seen, that's what this is about. So this is equalizing things. At least that's how I see it. Right? So I love that. So we're supposed to be on equal ground here. My word against your word. That's not going to be enough. So if you're accusing me of something, you need more evidence. You need more witness. So again, it could be, yes, my tunic stuck on the doorframe. It could also be your neighbor saw that. Your neighbor heard me boasting about it after the fact. Those are the kind of things. Can't just be you against me, because if you're rich and popular and powerful, I don't have a chance. But if we're going to rely only on the evidence, I do have a chance. Now, we've got our witnesses, and we want to make sure that our witnesses are going to be are compelled to tell the truth. So if a witness is found to be lying, they are liable for the punishment that I would have received had I been convicted. So you want to be careful. If you're going to stand up and accuse somebody falsely, you put yourself at great risk. That's clear here. That isn't assumed in any other time or place. But this is what Moses is telling us. This is what God has told Moses to tell us, the people who are going to live in this promised land. So witnesses shouldn't be lying, human witnesses. We need more than one witness, and both parties will take their dispute and shall appear before the Lord. That's what it says, before the Lord, comma, before the priests and the judges who are in office in those days. So again, what I'm being told in this is that the priests and the judges are doing the work of the Lord. Don't appear before the Lord and make an offering and then wait for someone to say, the smoke is gray, therefore you're guilty. That's not what it says. You're going to appear before the Lord. By the way, that means before the priests and the judges who are in office those days. So these are the representatives. So we human beings are part of God's justice. That's part of God's plan, that we should discern God's will and we should apply it within the community. We are invited to do justice, not sit back and wait for God to do it. We're invited to actively be part of justice. I think that's incredibly powerful. That speaks to me of a God who wants us to learn and grow, wants us to take responsibility, wants us to work with God. That is to keep God in mind. So this is also a message to the priests and the judges. This is not about you. But I'm the best judge there is. It's not your job to be the best judge there is. It's your job to act for God. Right? I'm the best priest there is. It's not your job to be the best priest. It's your job to act for God. Right? So keep God in mind. This is a faithful act you're doing. This is not about you, your skills, your abilities, your great wisdom. It's not about that. It's about God. And that's not a bad thing for me to remember on any day. As the leader of a religious community, that's important for me to remember. But I think it's also valid for any of us. You don't have to be the head of a religious community, but to recognize that God is involved in what you do and how you do it, whether you're working or farming. Working or farming. Apparently farming is not working. Whether you're working in an office job, whether you're farming, whether you're retired, whether you're in school, to imagine all the aspects of our lives that they are somehow connected to God. I like that, because every now and again I can silo things and go God, this isn't your business. I'll take care of it. Everything is God's business, and everything that I do can be a reflection of God's justice, of God's love. And the piece that really brings that home for me then is the last bit. So we're told, you'll do these things, but the witnesses, so you shall purge the evil from your midst. Again, that language is that's how we're going to get it. No. So that corruption, that thing that makes it difficult for you to do justice, that's how we're going to get rid of it. We're going to get rid of it by remembering we're doing God's work. We're going to get rid of that by insisting that there be corroborating evidence. That's how we're going to do it. And we're going to do that by taking it seriously. Because, by the way, if you get up on the stand and lie, or if you give false testimony, then you will be punished. Right? So, So if we take it seriously, if we do all of these things, that is how we're going to get rid of evil, not by driving out an evil person who somehow infects the whole community with their evilness. It's not that. It's by making sure that we are just. That's how we'll purge it. That's how we'll expel it. We'll get rid of it. The rest shall hear and be afraid. And you've heard me say many times, I hope, afraid, again, context. Will hear and be in awe. Be taken aback. Not afraid, that is to say, not afraid that, oh God, please, oh God, don't look at me, don't go look at me, don't look at me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. Not that kind of fear. But the people shall hear and they shall be in awe, because this is how it works. And then crimes like this will never be committed again. Right? We're not going to make false accusations. We're not going to make up stories. We're not going to just stand there and say, oh, well, no, this thing is true. Yeah, but we all saw that. Oh, I insist this is true. You're not going to do that because you run the risk now of being convicted. And the more serious your lie, the more serious your conviction. So we're not going to do that. We'll be in awe of that. We will be amazed how that works. Show no pity. Don't be afraid. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. And when we read that in Exodus, when we read it anywhere else in the Hebrew Scriptures, there's always people who jump at that going, yeah, that's exactly it. So if you kill somebody, you should be killed too. And that's how we support the death penalty, wherever we might support the death penalty. I personally don't, nor do my communities that I live in support the death penalty. But there are, obviously, countries and states within countries and regions, and there's places where the death penalty is in the world, and when it's in a Christian context, that's no, God said, life for a life. But again, context. We've just been told that we're going to the judges who are working with God, who are speaking for God. We have come before God with our dispute. A God who loves us, a God who wants us to live well in the promised land, right? A God who cares enough to have delivered us from Egypt to this place where we can live and thrive. So in that context, I am reminded a life for a life is a limitation. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot. So if indeed you cause me to lose my foot through your negligence, for which you should take responsibility, or for your criminal act, then your punishment should be the equivalent to losing a foot. Now, it might be losing a foot, but there may be some balance in that. But the thing is, it's not about you shouldn't be put to death for having caused me to lose a foot. You shouldn't be put to death for having had me lose a hand. Right? The punishment should be equivalent to the crime, no matter how rich or powerful the victim may be, or the family of the victim may be. Doesn't matter. No matter how upset they may be, no matter how angry they may be, no matter how vengeful they may be, that doesn't matter. That's taken out of the equation. We're doing this with God. And what God has said is it's a life for a life. But if we're not talking about taking a life, then we're not killing people. It's an eye for an eye. You can't gouge my eye out if you lost a finger working with me and it was my fault. You can't take my eye out for that. The fitting crime might be for me to lose the same finger on my hand, maybe. Or there may be some other way that we can do that so that the family is satisfied. There's a sense of justice having been accomplished. But the point is, there's a limit. So, when I read this, I am asked, I reflect, do I have limits in my desire for justice, in my vengeance, in my anger, in my frustration? Do I have limits? I'm so angry at you, I could just... Whoa, what are you angry about? Right now, I'll tell you the truth, I'm angry that somebody in my family, and I know exactly who it was, not my wife, did a load of laundry the other day and used up the rest of the laundry soap. And so I just went down to do my laundry and there's no laundry soap. So I'm going to have to go to the store and get some. At the moment, with the laundry on my shoulder, and I was furious and I was angry, so I could just punch somebody. You would punch somebody because there wasn't laundry soap? You'd punch somebody because when you go out later today, you're going to have to detour over to the grocery store and buy some laundry soap? Oh, wait a minute. I'm already going to the store later today. I'm going to 3 different stores, actually, for other things, all of which carry laundry soap. So, in fact, I am inconvenienced this much. But in the moment, my anger was this much. I'm being reminded, okay, whoa. What are you angry about, and what does your remedy really look like? And is your remedy just? Is your remedy what God would recommend if you were talking with God? Because remember, oh yeah, we are working with God in all that we do and the way that we live. At least that's what I'm getting from this. Nobody's asking me to set up a system of justice in the promised land, but I am being invited to think about how I might live justly and how I might be part of justice. And how I might recognize that God's desire for justice is about us human beings being able to live well together, more than trying to teach us to step in line, march in rhythm, and everyone who steps out slightly gets zapped and punished by a vengeful, angry God. No, the context is that of a loving God. So this is good advice to me. Anyway, that's how I'm thinking about it. I realize I turned that into a sermon, but that's exactly where my brain went. And maybe I've missed something really important, something that struck you, and that should be your wondering. But that's my wondering for the day. And with that, I'm going to offer a prayer. So let us pray. Loving God, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to wonder, to allow imagination and heart, allow compassion and context. Help us recognize the truth in your words as we hear them in ancient texts, your words as we discover them in our wondering. God, we ask that as we hear your word, we may be drawn to it and that we may grow in faith. We pray in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, through the Holy Spirit. Amen. And that's enough for me today. What a great way to start the week. But I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Until I get to see you, God bless you. Please know that God sees you, knows you, and loves you exactly as you are. Exactly as you are. But God's love doesn't just stop with you. It actually moves in and around and through you into the world and touches all of those people with whom you connect. You share God's love whether you know it or not. You're working with God. You really are. So thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing that love. And I hope to see you tomorrow.